Welcome back to the channel, it's Arrow, and today I want to talk about my League starter for 3.26 Secrets of the Atlas Mercenaries of Trarthus. I am super excited about this build and this League start. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of the build, roughly how to put everything together, how to read the POB, which is going to have lots of different loadouts, and any tips and tricks that you need to know to get the most out of your League start. So here we go. Self-cast, Glacial Cascade, Golemancer, Elementalist. So, pros and cons of the build. Why should you play it and why shouldn't you play it? Pro number one, instant damage. There are a lot of great builds out there that take some time to get their damage out and can make them feel a little bit slow or clunky. For example, a mine has to be thrown to the ground and then the spell has to be cast or the attack from the mine. Same thing with totems. You have things like poison and ignite, which take time to kill things. Now, lots of those builds are fantastic, but instant damage feels amazing in Path of Exile. This means you cast your spell once, you are very likely going to freeze the entire screen and blow it up all at once. I personally love that feeling, and it also acts as a layer of defense. Every second that enemies are alive around you is 1 second that they can kill you. Another pro is that we get to use Herald of Ice and Herald of Ash. This adds a massive layer of fun to any build that has instant damage. I absolutely love this combo on a physical skill. Number 3, you get access to Liege of the Primordial leveling, which I think will be the coziest way to level in the entire game. I have an entire video about this and why Liege of the Primordial at level 34 will provide you the biggest buffs of any single starting Ascendancy node in all of Path of Exile. If you want to watch that video, you can get more information, but we'll leave it at that. The next pro is that it's easy to gear and SSF friendly. Until you go for a Heat Shiver in the endgame, there are no mandatory uniques. Now, Heat Shiver is a huge amount of damage, but you can get millions of damage without it. All rare gear means very friendly to start, although there are tons of uniques that are useful. Another pro is that it has a very high ceiling. I played this in a tier 17s and Ubers last league, and the build has gotten huge buffs since then. It scales super well with Headhunter, so if you do want to go for that in the endgame, it feels really, really nice. The last pro is that it is just fun to play. Ever since Hydrosphere got gutted a few years ago, I struggled to find a replacement that felt as good to play. Enter Glacial Cascade. Self-casting Glacial Cascade feels very visceral. It kind of feels like you're throwing damage in a direction. You have knockback, you have big freezes, big crunchy explosions, and it just simply is a lot of fun. So let's get to the cons. There are not many, but some of them are big. Number 1, it is self-cast. Self-cast builds do have to stand still to get damage out, and some people simply prefer the mine, totem, etc. playstyles. If self-casting is not for you, then you should not play this build. Number 2 is conditional defense. There are a lot of layers of defense in this build, but many of them are conditional. For example, if you take a ton of melee damage all in a row and your Stone Golem of Safeguarding dies, you do lose that defense for 4 seconds. It takes a lot for that to happen, but it can happen. Also, off-screen projectiles are going to be very dangerous, which is why I recommend that you get a mercenary with grace and scale a bit of evasion on the build outside of some block. Until you hit an enemy, your Shaper of Flames and Shaper of Winter will not go off, meaning you'll lose all that damage reduction. However, the good thing is, because this build is so fast, you're generally going to be hitting enemies first. Secondly, your freezes chain and your Herald of Ice and Herald of Ash explosions will chain, which will put chill and ignite on every single enemy that you touch. So all of them will get all those conditional buffs. To put a finer point on that, don't play this build in hardcore, but it will feel very tanky most of the time in softcore. Also, you can adjust your playstyle, knowing that off-screen damage is the most dangerous. Avoid scenarios where you're standing still and might get off-screen. Lastly, this build is not going to scale super well for something like Rogue Exiles or Meat Sacks in tier 17s. The damage is very good. It is not so good that I would recommend that you do those super tank, super dangerous mobs. There are tons of ways to make money in this game, and if you want to do Rogue Exiles and Meat Sacks, I would play something else. Okay, so let's jump into the POB and talk about the build. I highly recommend that you don't just grab the POB and dip. There's going to be a lot of valuable information in here. Also, a MAXROLL guide will be coming, and I will link that in the description and pin the comment as soon as it's ready. So for starters, this is a full leveling guide. It starts at level 1, and you'll get a loadout for every single one. Early on, this will help you track all of the things that you want to take as you path through the tree, and then every single lab that you're going to do in the order that you're going to do them. So my first tip, when you switch to Glacial Cascade at 28, make sure that you have a 4-link. If you don't have a 4-link at 28, just play Creeping Frost for a few more levels and swap to GC as soon as you have that 4-link. The reason the 4-link is expensive is when we go to GC, we are going to start scaling critical strikes. So you want to have that 4-link to give you that extra crit bonus. Why do we go crit early? The main reason is that I don't want to do a big respec because your gold early on is going to be so much more valuable if you're spending it on gambling for gear. There's going to be a gamble vendor in every single town. If you need 4 links, if you just need general gear upgrades, you're going to be able to go to the vendor, spend your gold there, and get upgrades for your gear. This is super powerful, and I'd much rather have a player get a chance to get gear upgrades rather than have to spend all of their gold at the end of the story saved up to do a massive respec. The other reason we're going crit early is because critical strikes give you bigger hits for things like freeze, bigger chills, and just generically more damage. The Ice Golem at level 34 will provide over 100% critical strike chance, so on top of power charges and a couple of buffs on the tree, you're going to be getting going pretty quickly into crit. At that first lab, you will take Liege of the Primordial. Go watch my video on why this is the best starter node in the game if you want more information. Second lab, we're going to take Shaper of Flames for that physical mitigation. This is also going to be great for our Golem's physical mitigation, even our Merc and our AG. Probably won't have an AG that early, but everything else is going to get that defensive buff. Third lab, we're going to go for Shaper of Storms. As soon as you have Shaper of Storms, you can start scaling your shock effect. One of the great ways to do it is this 3-point node here, Static Blows. You'll be getting pretty big shocks early on with the Shaper of Storms. So then we have an early endgame no clusters level 90 POB here. I would plan on using this for the first 4 Void Stones. So make sure that you have not just the tree, but the loadout correctly selected so that it will pick the loadout item set, it'll pick the loadout skill set, and won't get too confusing. So in the true endgame, you're going to want clusters on this build. They are super valuable, but you can get a lot of power on the tree. So let's talk about Glacial Cascade quickly. Glacial Cascade has a final burst and initial burst. I'm still doing testing on this, as well as If and Jeff, my good buddy and tester extraordinaire, on figuring out exactly what the breakpoints are for AoE. Based on some early initial testing, it looks like 60% AoE is enough to reliably get 3 hits as long as you're aiming at the enemy. That means you're going to be able to add your final burst in 2 initial bursts, so 1 million, 1 million, and 3.2. That means this tree at 90 with the gear set that I have is a little bit over 5 million damage. It's possible to get more AoE and actually get a 4th overlap, but I don't have all the details on AoE yet. But the good news is 60 area of effect is what we get from our Flame Golem at level 34. So you are reliably going to be able to get 3 overlaps from the second that we equip our golems, and that is going to feel phenomenal. As far as items go, what I have here is mostly 3 mod items with 1 crafted mod. Nothing too crazy here. There's no tier 1 mods. It's just basically what you need to get going. I have some resistances here. Obviously, you can get them in different slots. If you find uniques that you want to use, you can just move some res around. But this shows you that with all 3 mod and crafted mod gear, you're going to be able to get res capped, and you're going to be able to get the damage that you need. As far as the Carcass Jack here, if you don't get a 6-link, you're probably better off just getting a 6-link rare, but you can get a Carcass Jack. You can also get one with +2, which is going to be a huge amount of damage. The Carcass Jack is just kind of an all-around feels good item. It's got a little bit of life. It's got good evasion and ES. It's got AoE. It's got damage. It's got some res. It's just a great all-around chest that is usually very cheap. So you can get a 5-link of this, or you can go for a 6-link rare. If you're looking for a rare, I would either go for evasion and ES or pure ES, and that's going to depend on how much dex that you have. The more dex that you have, the more I would recommend going for a hybrid item, because something like a necrotic armor is going to cost you 173 dex, which is very, very difficult to get. So really nothing too exciting on here. There's mostly not damage on any of these gear pieces. What I do have are things like Cold Leech, Freeze as an implicit. Freeze Prolif is super, super important. I recommend that gloves are the first thing that you craft. When you are in the end game, a good pair of gloves is really important because the implicits are so valuable. Getting Leech is super important for survivability. And as soon as you have Leech, you can take Zealot's Oath to make it so the regen applies to your energy shield. That'll keep your ES pull up and allow you to run RF of the Arcane Devotion. You cannot run this until you have a way to regen your energy shield. So no Arcane Devotion RF until you have Zealot's Oath, until you have Leech. So gloves, big priority. Boots, you can get things like Golem buff effect. You can pick whatever golem you prefer. I prefer the stone golem buff effect because we actually use 2 different stone golems. This will help both of them. On the helmet, you can get Fizz taken as, and then things like cast speed are okay. On the chest, if you use a rare, you want to go for buff effect of your golems and then probably Fizz taken as. So this is your early end game setup. You can use this to get all 4 of your Void Stones. Then we have the mid-game setup. This is going to transition into clusters, which are going to be a little bit confusing because there's so many options available to you. It's going to depend on the prices of things. Clusters are pretty difficult to craft. Now, you can craft all of these clusters yourself, but they're definitely easier to buy. A good thing about the large clusters is that you have a ton of options. Number 1, you can go for primordial bond and renewal clusters. You can craft these using different fossil setups. These are probably going to be expensive to buy because a lot of people are going to want Primordial Bond, but then you could also probably make some money crafting these for other people. But these are really good, but you don't have to use these. The Primordial Bond is a really good amount of damage and extra benefits, and Renewal gives minion regeneration, which is also super nice. On the other side of things, going for something like a Sadist is really, really good. Sadist gives you 60% increased damage if you've chilled, shocked, and ignited recently, which we are always doing with every hit. Then you can get Leech here if you want to get it off of your gloves. You can go for Blanketed Snow. You can get Freeze Prolif on your clusters. And then there's another option for your large clusters. If you decide that you want to go for more defense, you can go for spell block clusters. So this cluster here has Conjured Wall, which is 8% spell block, and Mage Hunter, which is 6%, and then an additional 45% spell damage. That's 14 per cluster. You use 2 of those, you're at 28. You fit in Tempest Shield. You can see where this is going. If you want to go the block route, you can go for block clusters. I do not have the endgame POB set up yet, but that will be coming, so it will be ready before the league start. But it's going to include things like Ashes of the Stars. Ashes of the Stars is a huge damage boost to the build. It's a huge quality of life boost to the build. You're going to get more AoE, more regen, more defense, and then a bunch more damage. Ashes is good for all of your skills. It's good for your Glacial Cascade because it gives us more damage from our quality. It also gives levels. Then things like our Heralds, you're going to get bigger AoE explosions from Herald of Ice. You're going to get more burning damage from Herald of Ash. And then plus levels to everything is super valuable. Plus levels to your golems is going to give them more tank and more of their base buff. And then quality gives more buff effect. So there's a ton of options for the large cluster jewels. Keep that in mind. You do not need a specific one. It's mostly there to allow you to get 4 medium clusters. Again, here there are a lot of options. You can go for minion defense on your cluster if you feel like they're dying too much, which they really should not be. So I personally won't be going that route. But something that's super important is getting one of these: Astonishing Affliction and Cold Conduction. This is going to give you both ailment duration, which is going to keep your chills, ignites, and shocks on enemies longer, but also effect of non-damaging ailments. This is important because getting max chills with Shaper of Winter is going to give you significantly slower enemies, as well as less damage taken. A 40% chill on a Pinnacle boss feels unbelievable. It's really, really strong, and you definitely want to make sure you're always at 40%. If you're not there, you can add things like Bone Chill into your main setup. It actually is quite good damage on top of being a good defensive layer, but in the end game, you actually don't need Bone Chill there. Also, for getting max shocks, we can get a very high shock amount. I wouldn't take this max effective shock until you're consistently getting 50% shocks on enemies. But in the end game, you are going to be able to scale this shock above 50%, so this mastery will come in handy. The other cluster that I'm going to be going for is very likely 3 pressure points and quick getaway clusters. You can craft these yourself. Quick getaway is the only caster mod, I'm pretty sure, on the medium cluster jewel for critical strikes, which means you can just spam Reforge caster until you get a pressure points. If you get something else that's useful, you can sell it to someone else. But pressure points is really nice because it's going to give you double damage, which is good for bigger shocks, bigger chills, and bigger freezes. So I'm actually using 3 of these. In the end game, when I have enough damage, I'm probably going to swap 1 or 2 of them, maybe even 3 out for more area of effect, because I like to blast maps. If you want more damage, you can stick with the crit. You can turn it into minion defense if you want to run tier 17s. The choice is up to you. So like I said, an endgame POB loadout will be added to this before league start. There are tons of options for this build in the endgame. One of the things that I love about this build so much is that it's so flexible because there's so few things required that you can kind of do whatever you want. Do you want to go Svalin and scale your block up to the moon? You absolutely can do that. Do you want to go for double wands? Double wands is going to feel incredible. It'll up your damage by about 60%. And in the deep end game, depending on what kind of content I'm doing, I might go for this setup. It's what I did last league, and it was really, really fun. It gives you even more cast speed and makes your Frostblink of Wintry Blast feel unbelievable in the end game. As you can see here, 10 casts per second on Glacial Cascade. If we come down here to our Frostblink, you'll see with 2 wands, we have 4.5 Frostblinks per second. Obviously, that's crazy. It's going to feel super, super good. And you're actually going to be able to clear maps just with your Frostblink. We've got 250,000 average hit here. And with good gear, this number is going to scale much, much higher. And you're going to Frostblink into packs and blow up the whole screen. All right, let's talk about the gems. The gem sockets are tight. So for our Glacial Cascade, Trinity, you don't want to run until you have a Heat Shiver. You're not going to be able to maintain Trinity unless you have a Heat Shiver. It's just not possible. So only use this once you have that. Increase critical strikes. This is very strong early, but in the end game, if you have a, say, Watcher's Eye with Hatred crit chance, you have some crit elsewhere, maybe you're running a Diamond Flask on a Mage Blood, use this until you get to crit cap, and then once you're there, drop this and swap in increased critical damage. If you have a ton of sources of increased critical damage, you can run Arcane Surge, which is also a very strong candidate and is getting a significant buff of 10% more spell damage in the upcoming patch. Also, Bone Chill, you only need to run this if you are not getting max chills otherwise. Once you have max chills, it is not worth using Bone Chill anymore, but it is a great way to make sure that your Shaper of Winter is always at max effect. We run 3 Heralds in the endgame, Ash, Ice, and Purity. They are all super valuable. Herald of Purity is going to give us more physical damage, and we're getting increased effect of these Heralds as well. Herald of Ice, huge explosions, extra flat damage. And then Herald of Ash is giving us Fizz as extra, which really makes it easy to maintain your Trinity because you're going to be getting chill effect on enemies, which is going to give you fire. So the Trinity is going to give us cold as extra fire, and then Herald of Ash is going to give us Fizz as extra fire as well. So even if you're not freezing enemies, you still are going to be able to keep Trinity up. If you're not keeping Trinity up, something is wrong there. Next, we have the Summon Stone Golem with Zealotry, Meat Shield, and Guardian's Blessing. This is going to allow you to press Zealotry and get a huge damage boost whenever you need it. Forgot to come back and turn off that second wand. So Zealotry is going to give you a big boost whenever you need it, but it's not going to be up all the time. However, if you have a little bit of regen, you can actually sustain through the Stone Golem's degen that it gets from Guardian's Blessing. I don't think it's worth investing enough to do that, but you absolutely can get there. And it's also possible to just get enough where the buff lasts for minutes. The Summon Stone Golem lasts for quite a long time. In this current POB setup, he's got 20,000 life and some regen. If you can get extra regen, which you're definitely going to have like a Shaper Seed on your Merc, that's going to be huge regen for these golems. And then you'll be able to sustain through the Guardian's Blessing, which feels amazing. But even when you don't have any of that stuff, it still lasts quite a long time. And I actually don't press Zealotry outside of pretty much pinnacle bosses. So you don't have to worry about the Stone Golem dying, especially this league with AG's going to be in the game and Mercs are in the game. Our other setup here, you see I have the Ice Golem in here, but we're not actually using it. The reason for that is because Stone Golem of Safeguarding may be expensive. I personally will not farm this gem myself. I cannot stand farming gems in lab. I simply just hate it. It's a decent way to make money. If you want to do it, more power to you. I am simply going to wait till I can afford to buy one, and then I'm going to drop my Summon Ice Golem. The Ice Golem is very powerful. It's got huge offensive buffs. It's going to give you over 100% critical strikes chance. So we'll be using this until I buy a Stone Golem of Safeguarding. Here we have Assassin's Mark. Assassin's Mark is obviously just for the Giga bosses, but this is very important. It's a bunch of damage. Righteous Fire of Arcane Devotion. Again, you can only use this once you have Zealot's Oath and Leech on your gloves or on Doriani's on a large cluster jewel. The reason for that is even though it is a small degen, because we have a very small mana pool on purpose, it's a small degen, but it will chew through your energy shield if you don't have a way to recover it. I think it feels really awful to burn through your ES and have to recover it manually when you're fighting. So I would say do not run this until you have Zealot's Oath and Life Leech. Lastly, we have an Animate Guardian here. This is going to be very basic. I think having an AG in your build, especially when we're going to have lots of defensive auras from things like our Merc, and we're even scaling a little bit of minion regen, I think having an Animate Guardian is kind of a no-brainer. For one gem socket, you can get a bunch of buffs, and if they die, it's not the end of the world. We're not going to be relying on the Animate Guardian to do anything. It's just going to be extra power for one gem socket. Lastly, we have the setup here that has Convocation on it. Currently not using Convocation in this setup. I have Arcane Surge level 1 on the Frostblink and Immortal Call automation. Of course, Immortal Call is not ticked. You will be using this, but I don't want to give fake numbers here in my POB. I don't want to get POB reviewed. So this is not ticked, but you will be using Immortal Call. Convocation is simply here if you decide that you need to use it. If you want to make sure that your golems are close to you, they are always regenning, you can move Convocation into this and drop the Arcane Surge. I would not drop Arcane Surge unless you're using it in your main links. It is super strong. It's giving 20 cast speed. So you need to have Arcane Surge somewhere in your build. In the end game, Frostblink of Wintry Blast will be our only move skill because we're going to be casting so fast that it's going to feel phenomenal to use. Some other thoughts, the Life Mastery, make sure that if you don't have life on your chest that you are running this Life Mastery. If you use a Carcass Jack, it has life, you have to get rid of it. We get our Shock Immunity from the Charge Mastery here. If you get Shock Immunity somewhere else, you can drop this. It's also really good to grab the increased charge duration if you decide to go ahead and get endurance charges on your chest. If you have a rare chest, an Eldritch Implicit will allow you to generate endurance charges, and then you can use this to keep them up full time. I probably won't be doing that, but it is a way to get more defense. Just make sure that you drop Immortal Call for something like Steel Skin if you do that. The shock mastery is only for when you are getting over 50% shocks. So once you see it hit 50% on bosses, you're going to want to make sure that you grab this. Another tip for if you are using Convocation, the 40% increased CDR is going to be a great way to use Convocation full uptime for the regen until you have quality on the gem. Secondly, because you're using Herald of Purity, minions recover 5% of life on minion death is a really strong way to get some cheap recovery for your golems. The Herald of Purity minions only have like a 12-second duration, so when they expire or die, this will go off and give a bunch of life to your other golems and also to your AG. If you're having trouble chilling enemies a lot, you can go ahead and take this chill effect in Glacial Cage instead of this side. This is going to give you much, much better freezes and a little bit of mapping damage. But if you're not chilling enemies enough, I would grab this right side. We go for Lucky Suppress in the build. Now it's possible to get enough Suppress on all of your gear that you don't need to go Lucky. I personally think Lucky is enough. You get yourself into the mid 90s, the low 90s. That is more than enough for me. I'm not playing hardcore. But if you want, you can drop this and just max out your spell suppress on gear. Something important, we are using the newly nerfed hits treat monster values as inverted. I just realized that I had forgot to re-tick the monster values as inverted. I had this in the calculations, but I got rid of it. POB just got updated this morning. So of course, half of the build updates that are coming through, none of the gems are ready, but the tree got updated. So I had to go through and make a bunch of changes. If I missed something, please let me know in the comments. Do not go, please do not flame me. I'm trying my best to make a perfect POB, but it is a lot harder than it looks. So we are going to be using this Elemental Mastery, which is going to give us some more damage here. Another great tip for early game, and honestly, even into the end game before you are crit capped, is increase critical strike chance against enemies on full life. This is basically going to get you very close to 100 or 100% crit chance for all of your Glacial Cascade casts, which is going to mean bigger explosions, more consistent hits, and it's going to be a significant boost to mapping. Obviously, this doesn't really help you on bosses, but I say early on, in any early leveling crit build, this is a mandatory mastery to grab. So the caster mastery for the final repeat of spells, this got buffed to 40%. PUB does a weird thing where it actually averages it out. So it gives you 20% for every hit, which is 0.1 meters, but it's actually 40% for every other hit, which means your first hit will be smaller and then your second hit will be much bigger. So the PUB calculation for this is not correct, but what that ultimately does with Spell Echo is allows it so every single cast that you do, the second half of it will have a much, much bigger radius, and it's going to make your clear feel a lot better. It'll also give you more consistent overlaps. There are a ton of really, really good anoints, and so many of them are about the same damage. I would say early on, Indigo, Amber is really tough to beat. It's 100% critical strikes chance against shocked enemies. Of course, you have to have Shaper of Storms for this first, but then you'll be shocking everything. So high voltage is super, super strong. If you want more speed, you can go for something like Graceful Assault, which gives onslaught on kill, as well as effective onslaught and increased armor and evasion. That is a black and 2 violet oils. In the end game, a power charge, so infused or overcharge is probably going to be your best bet. But there are a ton of options, and you can kind of do whatever you need depending on your budget. Lastly, let me talk about the custom modifiers in here. This is going to change when POB gets updated again, but there are some things in there that don't necessarily show properly. So the Shaper of Winter, nearby enemies deal less damage thing. This is for when we're getting 40% chills on enemies. Now you can change this if you're consistently getting 30% or 20%. You can change this number to whatever you want it to be. Shaper of Flames, I have fizz damage taken as fire damage. Again, this is conditional, but it doesn't show up in POB, so you can't actually look at it. If you get off screen, this is not going to apply, but getting off screen by giant physical hits is not as common as you'd think until deep into tier 17s. We have a Spell Echo buff. Again, when the gems get changed, this will disappear. Righteous Fire of Arcane Devotion. If you're not using that, you can turn that off as well. I have Convocation off at the moment, so I turned this off. Calm's Binding on a Merc is going to be insane. Look at your Fizz max hit is 14 right now. It goes up to 20 for enemies that you have ignited. So this is going to be a very early buy. My plan is actually to farm Harbingers early and then use Ancient Orbs on belts until I get the Calm's Binding. I think that is far and away going to be the easiest way to acquire one because it's likely going to be very expensive. but Ancient Orbs drop like crazy when you're farming Harbingers. On top of this, you can also run a Pyroshock clasp belt to get another 30%. Now, I don't think that will be necessary, but if you are still feeling like you're getting hit by Fizz a lot, you can actually get a perfect roll is going to get you 55% of Fizz taken as other elemental, and you can see your Fizz max hit goes through the roof. So I don't think that's necessary. It's just an option if you want to go that route. Arcane Surge, if this buff right here, this 10% more, that is only if you are running that in your main setup. So I have that shut off as well. So I currently have a 40 chill and a 47 shock in here because according to the calcs in this area here, you can see that's what I have on Pinnacles. And I actually have 46% on Pinnacles. So you can change that if you want to, but please keep in mind, this POB is configured for the mid-game cluster setup. I did not make a configuration for every single setup. There are simply only so many hours in the day. If you find an error, please let me know in the comments. Making loadout POBs can be pretty overwhelming. So when you make a change, you have to make it to every single one. And it's possible that I missed something. So please let me know. There will be a MAXROLL guide that is going to have all the information about what you should use on your Animate Guardian and your Mercenary. So please check that out. That will be in the description and pinned. And that will be out as soon as I can get it done, hopefully today. So I'm sure I forgot a bunch of stuff, but we're doing our best here. We are screaming up on League Start. So I wanted to get this video out today. But more changes will come to this POB, so make sure that you stop by the stream, twitch.tv/AER0__ to make sure that you have the latest POB. And that is going to be it for me. So thank you for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, etc. And as always, take care.